Now, this is Correlation Journal, and I want to tell you about it. Now, Correlation Journal is the premier journal for peer-reviewed research into astrology. Now, if you're an astrologer, an astrology student, a skeptic of astrology, or just interested in how the scientific method can be applied to astrology, then this is the place for you. Now, I want to tell you about the current issue of Correlation, and that is Volume 33, number 2, and this is 2021. We, as a journal, have been going 40 years, but this is my first as editor. And when I say it's a peer-reviewed journal, what I mean is that every paper is reviewed by at least 2 experts in the field. And this means that we have to reject several submissions because we have to be our own skeptics. And this means that those that make publication are a result of collaboration and of the highest quality. Now, the downside is that every article takes a long time to reach publication, which can be very frustrating for the editor, but it's worth it in the end. Anyway, this time around, we have 8 excellent articles. Now, the first paper that I think will be of a lot of interest to practicing astrologers is by a Finnish astrologer, Dr. Kyösti Tarvenen. Now, he's pulled together 17 of his studies from the last 10 years of research. Now, what is great is that he's dared to test 12 questions that most astrologers ask, or at least should ask themselves to give better readings. And I'll start with the most controversial. And this should, a lot of astrologers might resonate with this question, which is, which house system between Placidus, Cock, Equal, or whole sign houses performs best in tests? Another question he's asked is, how does the sidereal zodiac compare with the tropical zodiac for Western natal interpretations? Question number 3 is, does interpreting house cusps on a sequential basis work with an unequal house system? Well, you have to read it to understand what he's talking about. Another question is, which predominates natal aspects, the planets or the angle? And another one is, what is the maximum orbs for major and minor aspects in natal charts? This astrologers cannot agree, but it's interesting to see what happens when we put it to the test. He also asks, are applying aspects stronger than separating aspects in natal charts and transits? And he does get a result on that. I'm not going to tell you all the answers because I really would like you to subscribe to the issue. Anyway, disassociate, that's out of sign, aspects weaker than aspects in sign. Do traditional chart rulers have greater impact on their house position than other planets? Does the part of fortune, if you're into Arabic parts, work as a single formula, or should it vary by day or by night? Question number 10, which midpoints are the most powerful? Number 11 is comparison of classical synastry, composite charts, and the Davison method. And the last question is, what is the impact of aspects between the lunar nodes and synastry? Now, what is really important is he is testing the techniques and his results are under certain conditions. We're not aiming, or he's not aiming, to rule out all other systems or alternatives, but it just is to do some tasks. Some systems may be better than others. But in all these tests, we need replication to know how it works. Now, we have 2 papers on midpoints. Now, I've always been a bit of a skeptic about midpoints, but then I have Saturn on my sun-moon midpoints, so maybe that's why I'm a skeptic. I don't know. Vincent Godbout, who from Canada, a very good researcher from Canada, uses his software to match biographies of famous people with their horoscopes. And he tested various midpoints, direct, indirect, and when he used them with the aspects, he found that he could increase his success rate to an extraordinarily low probability, i.e. 1 in 9 million, that it occurred by chance. Now, equally extraordinary is the probability value that comes from Paul Westron's study of synastry data. Now, in 2005, Paul, who's in Australia, so we have a really around the world collection of people here, found a remarkable level of Sun-Venus natal and progressed interaspects between 1,300 celebrity couples. Now, in the coming edition, Paul has collected birth data for another 1,300 sets of couples, and the latest results are extraordinarily similar. Graham Douglas tracked down a set of birth data for babies who tragically died of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. And in line with the previous study, he found that infant mortality coincided with a high frequency of Saturn in the Gauquelin sectors. The good news is that you don't have to worry your clients about the remote risk, as the data comes from 1934 when infant mortality was much higher. But for researchers, this is very useful, as it is the 15th replication of Michel Gauquelin's methods. Now, some of you may have read a book by Alexander Boxer called A Scheme of Heaven that came out last year. And it's a pretty good book. It's not that good, and I'll tell you why. In it, he tests whether the traditional association of the sign of Libra and the law applies to 114 Supreme Court justices based on their sun sign. And Boxer's result was that there was an average number of Libra sun sign justices. So he concluded no connection, it's just random between Libra and the law. The connection was just random. Anyway, however, I and plenty of other astrologers associate judges with Jupiter in addition to Libra, maybe even more so. So when I combined the two planetary sign themes, okay, with a derivation of using mutual reception, it came up significantly in the chart. And that is with a 1 in 1,000 probability that this could have occurred by chance. Now, the paper will explain how I did this, but it's a way that would replicate what I would do in a consultation. And that is different from how I've done research in the past, where, you might look at one factor, like Boxer looked at sun signs, it's just one factor, whereas when you combine factors, you start to see things. And that's what we all do when we see clients. You may not be conscious of it, but you see things that reinforce something, and then you can go stronger on that point, and that is usually where you hit home. Anyway, there's more, and there's another edition of Correlation planned for the second half of this year. Now, let me show you the copy. This is it. This is current version, and we've got lots of graphs, and it's very easy to understand, but it's also it's quite visual, and I think that it's well worth any astrologer looking into it. So for 2021, we can celebrate Correlation's 40 years as the premier journal in astrological research. This will be our Ruby Jubilee. And I would ask all of you to go to correlationjournal.com to subscribe now, as this is the best way for you to add authority to your astrological claims. And remember, when you subscribe, you have access to all these and many previous versions online, all included with the subscription. So it's a great thing. Bye.